Today we're going to have a walk down the street that is as good an example of socialist urban planning as you will find anywhere. So the street in question, Novoizmailovskiy Prospect or New Izmailov Avenue, it's not a famous street, not a well-known street. I mean, I'm sure you've never heard of it, and quite frankly I'm pretty sure that most residents of St. Petersburg have never heard of it, let alone ever been down here. It's certainly not a main street. It's kind of tucked away. I mean, it's quite a big street. It's 2.5 kilometers long, and we'll walk all of it today. You know, it'll only take me half an hour, so we can cover it all. But what's important about it is the fact that it was developed in the 1960s as kind of a blueprint of how a socialist housing street should be. First impression is that you could easily still be in the 1960s. You know, even though St. Petersburg's a big modern city, this street seems to have changed very little. Pretty much straight away you see that the street's got its own park. It's called the Airman's Park, and there's a reason for that, because on this location there used to be an aerodrome. This street was going to be used as a blueprint for other streets in other parts of the socialist world, so it had to be good. And it was good. If you look at a photo of how it used to look, wow, I mean really that is the socialist dream in a nutshell. It's got a really relaxed vibe actually, and it's, you know, it's not a thoroughfare. Like I say, you know, people aren't passing through here. And also there's not a metro on this street, it's on the next big street, and the train station's on the next big street. So I think, again, that's probably deliberate, because metro stations and train stations are always like noisy places, aren't they? Big crowds, dirty places, you get rubbish, kiosks, down and outs, things like that. So it's hard to have a utopia if you've got a train station nearby. One thing that some of you may have noticed is just how wide this street is. So perhaps they deliberately chose the site of a former aerodrome to build the new socialist street, because, you know, socialist streets, they were supposed to be wide and green and, you know, have this feeling of grandeur. They weren't supposed to be, you know, narrow and dirty like the old Tsarist streets. Again, I don't know if it's deliberate or just a coincidence, but there's 3 blocks on this street, and like the second block is twice as long as the first one, and the third block is twice as long as the second one. Just something I noticed. So if that was done deliberately, I can't think off the top of my head why, but perhaps there was a reason for it. Each side of the street spread out, there's at least 10 of these sort of taller blocks with the smaller Khrushchevkas in between them. You can't see it at ground level, but you've got these rows of Khrushchevkas coming off the street, and sometimes there can be as many as 8 in a row. This is how a socialist residential street was supposed to be, and this street would be featured in books and postcard sets. You can see some of the blocks there. I mean, you're 150 metres away from the block opposite, which in cities these days would be unthinkable, such openness and space. Apologies to those of you who are hoping to see anything exciting or amazing today. I mean, that's not going to happen, but it's not supposed to. This is just basically a simple residential street, how people in the socialist world were supposed to live. You've got to think this street was planned in the 1960s, when communism was at its peak and when everyone still believed in it and it was being progressive, before the stagnation period set in the 1970s. This street was going to be how future streets would be for the, by now, hundreds of millions of people living under communism. Of course, communism or socialism failed in the end, but there was a time in the 1950s and 60s when it was really working, and this street is evidence of that. So showing the street's perhaps a little bit dated now, and it's probably seen better days, but still it's worth seeing, I think. We've come to the end of the street, and I deliberately started at the other end to save the best till last. On this side you've got, wow, this structure. It's certainly not pretty, but it's interesting nonetheless. And opposite it is one of those cool glassy cinemas, one of the 14 that were put up around the city.